All right, so have you ever heard of a pantheon of brains?
A pantheon of brains?
Yeah, pantheon of brains.
No, I can't say that I have.
Like a Hall of Famer, but for brains?
No.
Okay, well, get ready, because today we are going to deep dive into the Soviet Union's quest to understand genius. And they did this by collecting and studying, you guessed it, the brains of their elite.
Wow.
I know, right? Wild stuff. We're going to be using J. Christopher Westland's book, Brains of Great Bolsheviks, to guide us. It's going to be a wild ride.
I'm intrigued already.
I bet you are. It's a story that really, reveals a lot about the Soviet Union's ambitions. Their belief that science could be used to shape society, to mold people, I guess.
Interesting.
It is. They were driven by this idea of the communist man, like this idea that humans could evolve, become more intelligent and creative.
Okay.
They weren't just collecting brains for the heck of it or for some creepy museum. They really believed they could find something tangible in those neural pathways, some physical marker of brilliance.
So they were looking for like a biological basis for genius.
Yeah, exactly. Like maybe Lenin's brain had some unique structure or something that made him a revolutionary leader.
And it's just fascinating how this idea, the scientific ambition, it gets all tangled up with the politics of the time. Think about Leon Trotsky, for example, champion of the communist man ideal, this highly evolved being.
Right.
And then years later, his brain ends up in the collection.
Oh, the irony is like the system he helped create turns around and sees him as just another specimen to be studied.
Exactly.
So who was the brains behind this brain collecting project? No pun intended.
Well, the driving force behind this whole endeavor was a prominent neurologist named Vladimir Bekhterev.
Okay.
He had this vision, this grand plan to create a pantheon of brains, a collection showcasing, like the neurological prowess, the brain power of the Bolshevik elite.
I see. A bit like a scientific hall of fame, but just for brains.
Precisely. And it was actually inspired by the Paris Pantheon, a monument to national heroes. Bekhterev saw these brains as relics of a different sort. Like testaments to the intellectual firepower that was driving the Soviet project.
Interesting. But wasn't there a darker side to all this?
Oh, absolutely.
Like these brilliant minds, weren't they burning out, cracking under pressure?
That's exactly right. You see, those early years of the Soviet Union, they were incredibly demanding, right? Building a new society from scratch.
Right.
It took a toll. And Bekhterev argued that these brains needed to be preserved, studied, understood before they were, lost forever.
Makes sense. Okay, so they had this vision, this grand plan. But what about the actual science? Were they just looking at these brains or were they doing real, in-depth research?
Oh, they were deeply, deeply invested in the science.
Okay.
Take Lenin's brain, for instance. It wasn't just preserved, it was meticulously dissected.
Dissected?
Yes, dissected into 30,000 slices.
30,000 slices.
30,000 slices by a German neuroscientist named Oskar Vogt. This was, at the time, cutting-edge neuroscience. They truly believed that by analyzing the microstructure of the brain, they could unlock the secrets of Lenin's genius.
That is incredible and a little creepy, if I'm honest.
Okay.
Did they find anything conclusive? Did they figure out what made Lenin, Lenin?
Well, that's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
Vogt did claim to have found unique features in Lenin's brain, things that set it apart.
Okay.
But his findings were met with a good deal of skepticism.
Really?
Yeah, from the scientific community. And we have to remember, this was a time when neuroscience was still in its infancy, really.
Right.
The tools and methods were very limited.
Sure. And let's not forget the political context, right?
No, of course.
How can you be truly objective when you're dealing with someone like Lenin?
Exactly. Any findings would be viewed through the lens of ideology, whether they liked it or not.
Right. So what happened next? Did the project continue?
Oh, it did. The project pressed on, and Bekhterev continued to lead the charge, at least for a little while. But his time at the Brain Institute was very short-lived.
What happened?
Well, he made let's just say, a career-limiting move.
Oh.
He diagnosed Stalin with paranoia.
Ooh.
Yeah, not a good move.
No.
Shortly after that diagnosis, Bekhterev died under, shall we say, suspicious circumstances. Officially, it was food poisoning.
Right.
But the irony, of course, is that his brain was then added to the very collection he helped create.
Wow. Okay, so even the founder wasn't immune.
Yeah.
It really does make you wonder about the kind of atmosphere surrounding this project.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah. And get this, they also had Hitler's skull
Ah.
The Soviets, they dug it up from his bunker in 1946, totally convinced it was his, and they even put it on display in Moscow.
Yes, until 2000, in fact.
It's wild.
Yeah.
So they wanted to compare Hitler's brain, to their communist men.
Yes, they were looking for, neurological proof, I suppose, to support their ideological claims, to prove that their system, their way of thinking was superior.
Right. But I'm sensing a twist here.
Oh, a massive twist.
Okay, lay it on me.
DNA analysis in 2009 revealed that the skull actually belonged to a woman.
Wait, they had the wrong skull this whole time.
It seems so.
Oh my God. That's incredible. Talk about a blunder. Okay, so how big was this brain collection really? I mean, we've talked about Lenin, Bekhterev, even Hitler, but there must have been others.
Oh, yes, many others. The Soviet brain collection was massive, numbering in the thousands.
Thousands.
Thousands. It dwarfed other collections around the world, places like Paris, Stockholm, even Cornell University's collection of 1,200 brains. But it wasn't just about quantity. They specifically targeted the Bolshevik elite.
Right.
Writers, scientists, artists, anyone deemed exceptional. Think Eisenstein, the filmmaker, for example. And, of course, Stalin himself. The collection efforts continued right up until the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1989.
Wow. So this project spanned decades and consumed the brains of some of the most influential figures in Soviet history. But here's the big question, the one that's been bugging me this whole time. Did they ever find what they were looking for? Did they unlock the secrets of genius?
That's a question for the ages, isn't it? Did they find concrete evidence of the communist man? Or was this all a futile attempt to quantify something as elusive as genius?
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Can we truly understand the complexities of the human mind through a purely material lens? Or is there something more, something that defies dissection and analysis?
That's quite the thought to leave us with. It seems the Soviet quest for the communist man ultimately raised more questions than it answered.
It certainly seems that way.
Well, that is all the time we have for today, but I hope this deep dive into the world of Soviet brain collecting has given you something to ponder. Until next time.